Hey guys, it's me again, Gizmo. Here to read another exciting fanfic. Um, so yeah. This is Pinkie Pie watches paint dry. Here we go. The room had been orange, and now it was not. Pinkie Pie couldn't wrap her head around it, how very, very easy it was to change the identity of a thing simply by changing its color. Whether it was willing to be changed or not, what had once been the orange room was soon to be the pink room. It was simply a matter of waiting for paint to dry, and once it did, there would be no going back. Together they had reached the point of no return, and once they crossed the threshold, nothing would ever be the same. Because I was like she's talking about someone. Right. There was nothing the walls could do about it. Either they had no... Wait. Alright, that was... Is an error. There's the whole sentences together. Let me try it. There was nothing the walls could do about it, either. They had no say in the matter, and she had been the one to do it to them. She had been the one to steal the room's very identity. After all, once upon a time, her loft at Sugarcoop Corner had been painted orange. Had been the orange room. Now, it was not. Soon, it was going to be pink, and then it would be the pink room. And all of her memories of the orange room would fade into obscurity with time. What had once been identified by its uniqueness was being... Do you hear that tapping sound? It's my ceiling fan. It's my ceiling fan. It's my ceiling fan. It's... Shut up! Oh my god. And it's falling into pieces along with everything else. After all, everything she owned was pink, and soon her bedroom would be no different. What did that say about the fleetingness of the individuality when something as simple as a can of paint could change the very nature of a thing? When the mere color could change what a thing was at its very core, for a room was no longer orange, could no longer be called the orange room. The room would become something else entirely. Even if she painted over it once the pink had dried, in order to try and recapture the orange, she was quickly finding herself missing. It would never again be simply the orange room. Instead, it would be forever known as the room that had once been orange, and then it was pink, and now was orange again. And Pinkie Pie didn't know she'd be able to remember that name. A name that long. Even the acronym, I don't even know what the hell that says. Tritoboa was too long for her liking. She doubted whether she'd even her sharp mind would be able to keep track of that many letters. I don't even know what that says. I'm sorry. She stood in the middle of the room, her coat and mane covered in flecks of the stuff, lying off to the side, abandoned and forgotten. There lay 2 now empty cans of paint and a pair of brushes still coated in fresh paint. Her furniture had been covered in protective tarps before they had begun their task, but there had been nothing in place to protect those poor walls. Perhaps, Pinkie mused, because painting the walls had been the entire point of the exercise in the first place. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Rendering such tarps unnecessarily and unhelpfully, Pinkie took a step forward, hoof outstretched, and placed it gently against the wall. The paint was still damp, having not yet dried enough for it to be permanent. That meant that the orange room was still in limbo. No longer orange. True, but not entirely pink either. That could still be changed, and that meant that there was a choice. Was hers. Did she let fate run in this course? Was it more merciful to end this transformation now, removing the paint while it was still wet and hopefully easier to do so? Or would it be kinder to see the process through in my fan? Oh my god, that sound. Uninterrupted, and allowed her precious bedroom to become what it would individually become pink, like everything else she possessed. Was it too late? Had the damage already been done? With such change, I can't. I don't even want to read big words right now. Irrevocable. There you go. Seeping through the very nature of the walls themselves, perhaps the walls no longer viewed themselves as an orange walls. Perhaps they had grudgingly accepted their destiny as pink walls and would resent her for altering them any further if she chose to do so. Pinkie wanted to make amends, but she didn't know how. She didn't know how to make it up to the poor walls. After all, she had already changed them too much. She had already stripped them of their identities. If she went any further, what would become of her? If paint had such power, then what could it do to her? Wide-eyed Pinkie examined her hoof, bright pink like the rest of her, but now it was stretched with pink paint as well. If paint could change the very essence of a thing, what would it have done to her if the paint had been green or blue or burnt sienna instead of pink? It had been a fortunate coincidence that she had happened to be her own favorite color. One that she would forever be grateful for, but if that hadn't been the case, she wouldn't ever begin to imagine what it would have meant. If the paint she had chosen been any other color than accidentally becoming covered in what would have changed her, just as the four walls surrounded her had been changed, she wouldn't have been a Pinkie Pie covered in pink paint polka dot tees. Wait. Pinkie Pie covered in pink paint polka dotties. That's hard for me to say. The way she was now, she would have been a blue polka dotted, almost pink, but not quite. She wouldn't have been a proper Pinkie. She wouldn't have been a proper Pinkie. If she had been stained in blue, if it wasn't necessary, a Pinkie, and if that wasn't a static thing, and if it was so easy to change or disguise, then who was she? If she wasn't a full-blooded Pinkie Pie, then she didn't know who she was at all. She certainly couldn't be a bluey or a greenie or a burnt sienna. She had been a Pinkie all her life, after all, and she was exceptionally good at it. Being a Pinkie Pie was all she'd ever known, all she could trust herself with, all she wanted. She couldn't bear the thought of some kind of forced change claiming her identity, but wasn't that what herself had done to the orange room? She had taken it upon herself to change, potentially against its will, for better. She had believed at time. She was now quickly coming to regret it, but perhaps all she'd done was steal this identity and force a new one upon it. One that... There's an ant on my keyboard. I want to kill it, but I don't want to change the page. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Ah! I got it. Wait, I lost where it was. She had taken it upon herself to change potently against its will. For better, she had believed at time. She was now quickly coming to regret it, but perhaps all she'd done was steal its identity and force a new one upon it, one that had no option about it. The orange room was no longer the orange room. Pinkie Pie might no longer be Pinkie. All it took to change a thing was a simple way of a simple can of paint. Almost hesitantly, Pinkie Pie once again touched the dry pink paint, only to find it was no longer wet to touch. It was too late then. The deed had been done, and the orange room was gone forever. In its place was nothing but pink. See? I told you she was being weird. How long has she been standing there? Rainbow Dash and Twilight stood at the entrance of Pinkie Pie's bedroom, watching her in wide-eyed fascination while Twilight was. At least Rainbow Dash was scowling. I don't know, in almost an hour, I guess. She wanted to paint her room, so I said I'd help her. And we started painting, and then suddenly she just stared at the wall scared and saying stuff like, "What have I done? What have I done? I'm so sorry!" And acting all crazy, and then she started doing this. Are you sure she just isn't being Pinkie Pie? Twilight ventured from her... Sorry, it's like midnight and I'm reading this. Twilight ventured from her perspective. All she could see was the pink pony standing perfectly still in the middle of the room. A gaze looked in her eyes, as though she were deeply lost in thought. That would have been alarming enough under ordinary circumstances, but Pinkie Pie It was especially so. Pinkie wasn't exactly the kind of pony prone to bouts or deep philosophical thoughts, and the unicorn had the I just can't talk. Had the management to see her in the midst of such competent was a tad worrisome. Was a tad worrisome. Pinkie Pie doesn't act crazy like this. Pinkie Pie acts crazy by jumping around and talking about random stuff. Since when does she get all moody? There was a brief silence while the two of them watched their friend continue to stand perfectly still. She might not even have been breathing. They had no way to tell. There was nothing in her stance to give it away from the position. They couldn't see whether her chest was rising or falling or not. She was like a statue. Just you wait. Her hair's gonna go flat and she's gonna start talking to rocks any second now, Rainbow Dash muttered rather darkly after a moment of this. Why was she apologizing? I have no idea when she started crying after eating a cupcake because she missed it. Oh, excuse me. Ugh. That was a burp. I didn't even see that coming. Maybe she'd felt bad about painting the walls? That's silly. So what do we do? Dash asked, again piercing through the doorway at the socially side to... Oh my god. Sotolically tragic figure of the mournful Pinkie Pie, alone except for the alligator obscenely gumming on her tail, while with vacant eyes. The alligator, though normally borderline chaotic and gifted with doubtful levels of sentience, was currently more active and living and lively than his normal energetic mistresses. I don't know. I'm not sure. Twilight confessed, scratching her head frowning. She liked to believe that she was rather intelligent, but even she had to confess that Pinkie Pie was gaming. No pony had ever knew why she did the things she did, let alone how to make her stop. If Pinkie Pie had decided to stop being a whirlwind for pure energy and instead fall into some strange state of melancholy, who was she to judge? It looks like she's having some kind of overly introspective internal monologue, but I can't really tell. What kind of egghead are you? Aren't you supposed to be good at fixing these kind of things? Twilight shrugged helplessly, and Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes before stomping away. She could have easily flown down the stairs, but she seemed determined to make as much noise as possible in order to emphasize just how fed up she was, and so stormed down the steps, shaking the entire house. For a minute or two, Twilight remained in the door, watching her friend somewhat curiously. She was yet to solve the puzzle of Pinkie Pie's existence, and this was just another mysterious regarding her strange friend. But like all intellects, she knew how to pick up her battles. Pinkie Pie was a case she may never solve, and will be no point in straining herself to try, so instead she would observe and see what she could learn about Pinkie Pie's currently curious state of future reference. Sorry, it's like on Word document, so I have to like scroll down. Ugh, the story is longer than I anticipated it to be. Oh no, I'm almost done. Never mind, I'm almost done. She wasn't entirely clear on why Rainbow Dash had come to her for help, but the egghead comment made her suspect that the Pegasus had thought she'd known a spell to snap Pinkie Pie out of unprecedented. See, this is my dyslexia acting up on the worst possible times. Unprecedented lucency or something, but the support of the Pinkie Pony was in the almost... Oh, my nose. Hypotonic, seeing the normally spastic Bakers so subdued for once had a strangely relaxing effect, and Twilight almost didn't want to end it. Truth be told, it was so peaceful. She was a murderer. At least if Orange Room had been an actual pony instead of a studio apartment, his blood would have been all over her hooves as a result of what she'd done to him. Only the case, it wasn't blood, it was paint. Actually, maybe that didn't work. If she had stripped the old paint, orange paint, rather than just paint over it, then the old paint might have been the blood of the room, and then the metaphor would have worked. Since the paint on her hooves was new paint, it was more like she'd given Orange Room new blood rather than shedding his old blood. So instead of having murdered him, it was like Pinkie Pie had given him too much life, and it was overwhelmed him. Yes, it's an unbearable liveliness. Yes, it was. Rainbow Dash barreled past Twilight and into the freshly painted room, knocking aside Gummy and the alligator so she could shove a cupcake into Pinkie Pie's face. "Cupcake," she said fiercely. "Look at the cupcake! Eat the cupcake!" For a moment, Pinkie looked startled just to see Rainbow Dash in front of her. A dazed look crossing her face, then her eyes fell on the cupcake and grew wide. A squeal of joy, she yanked it from the Pegasus and shoved it into her mouth. Ing. In pleasure and licking her lips. "Wow, thanks, Dashy," she cried. "That was yummy. I haven't had a cupcake in like forever. I totally needed one." Rainbow Dash grinned, looking triumphant. "Mr. and Mrs. Cake said that you get." Did you hear my mom? Did you hear my mom? She was like, I'm just like, "Mom, stop. I'm recording." What just happened? What happened to my stuff? Oh my god, do I even know what happened? Okay, sorry, my mom just like... Remember that grinned like triumphant. "Mr. and Mrs. Cake said that you get like this sometimes when you don't have enough sugar and then you start slowing down and watching grass grow and stuff. And all it takes to snap you out of it is a cupcake," she explained with satisfaction. "So you good now? Back to normal?" "Yeah, huh? Thanks again for the cupcake," Pinkie Pie cried through a mouthful of pastry, beaming. "Red velvet is my favoriteest flavor right now. Oh my gosh, this is so good. You should eat one too. You should have a cupcake party." "We should have a cupcake party." "Yep, back to normal," Rainbow Dash declared, clapping Pinkie on the shoulder with a wing and steering her towards the door. "Come on. I think the paint fumes are getting to me, too. Let's go make Tank and Gummy wrestle or something." "Yay!" And so the two friends left chatting comfortably as they waltzed past Twilight as though they'd forgotten that the unicorn was even there. With a sigh, Twilight turned and followed them out. Maybe Pinkie thought munching on the unexpected cupcake, maybe that's what life was all about in the end. Accepting loss and changing and finding a way to work it out and move on. Maybe life was about letting the tragedies bog you down and cause you to forget little things that made life truly shine. Maybe life was about all those small pleasures, those tiny instants of joys, and not so much about the bad things. Maybe that was the secret to true happiness. And so, Pinkie exited the formerly orange room with no lingering regrets, no looking back to what she left behind, no longer to looking what she left behind even once, instead choosing to look forward only to the bright future ahead, to friends, to delicious, tasty cupcakes with sprinkles. Seeing the expressions of beatifical enlightenment on Pinkie Pie's face, Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes and sighed. You are so weird," she muttered. Well, I gotta say, that was one of the most interesting, yet really fascinating fanfics I've read in a while. I actually enjoyed it. I love how it describes, like, Pinkie Pie, like, thinking about all these weird things. But, yeah. Subscribe and comment below. Inbox me any requests you have. So, yeah. Peace, love, and cheese!